I've mentioned a few examples of how you use attention in everyday life, but when scientists study attention in the laboratory, it's useful to have well-defined, often simplified tasks, which allow us to accurately measure the specific effects of attention on behavior, and then look for changes in brain activity or state that correlate with those behavioral effects. Next, we'll talk about ways to measure the behavioral impact of attention in a laboratory setting. One task that's often used to measure attention is a change detection task with a spatial cue. In this task, the subject must report whether there is a change in a stimulus appearing on a computer display. For example, a change in the orientation of one of these bars. On some trials, there's no cue, and the observer needs to monitor all the bars for a potential change. On other trials, the observer is cued at the start of the trial with a location where the change is most likely to occur. In this case, the observer can use endogenous attention to focus on the cued location. Usually, observers are instructed not to move their eyes. What will the effect of this cue on their ability to complete the task be? This can be measured in several different ways. Usually, the parameters of the display are adjusted to make the task difficult by using very small changes in orientation, putting many stimuli on the screen at the same time, perhaps by making bars very close to the background in color. If the task is hard enough that the observers make some errors on uncued trials, then we would expect the cue to improve their performance. They should more reliably indicate whether or not a change occurred when they have a spatial cue to direct their attention. This can be quantified by calculating the percentage of correct trials, which we'd expect to be higher on cued trials compared to uncued trials. Another common effect of attention is to speed up neural processing, which is detectable as a faster reaction time. In other words, how long it takes the observer to report whether or not a change occurred. Another way to measure performance is to vary the magnitude of the change from trial to trial. In the change detection task example, large changes in the bar's orientation are more readily detectable than small, subtle changes in orientation. We can then use that information to build what's called a psychometric curve. To do this, we ask the observer to perform the change detection task over and over again, each time changing the size of the orientation change of the bar. We can then plot the observer's performance on the y-axis as a function of the magnitude of the change in bar orientation on the x-axis. We can construct the same plot separately for cued and uncued trials. If the observer is guessing, performance should be about 50%, since half the trials have a change and half don't. The psychometric functions reveal each observer's threshold for discriminating a change in orientation, the minimum size of change that's needed for the observer to reliably detect that a change has occurred. And now we can compare those threshold values for cued versus uncued trials. This difference reflects the perceptual enhancement due to spatial attention. In this example, we can see that the threshold decreases with attention, which means that observers can reliably detect smaller orientation changes when attention is directed to the location where the change will occur, based on a spatial cue. Does attention actually change how something looks? Does it actually alter our perception of the visual world? Several experiments suggest that attention does indeed alter our perception. For example, attention alters our perception of stimulus contrast, making an attended stimulus appear to be higher contrast than an unattended one. In this image, attending to the grading on the left will make it appear to be of equivalent contrast to the grading on the right. Attention also seems to enhance the spatial resolution of a stimulus, allowing us to perceive finer detail, even if that might not be advantageous for the task at hand. In the next set of videos, we'll take a look at the changes in brain activity which accompany and presumably underlie these changes in perception due to attention.